It was working. Yeah. So, welcome. Great to be here at the Agile Tour here in Kaunas and to see so many people coming here to hear about Agile and to hear about what's happening in the world, to hear new ideas, to get some fresh ideas on how to do it. So, what I'm going to be talking about today is on continuous improvement, and that may sound a little bit dull, but actually continuous improvement is at the heart of Agile. What I will show you today is that there's a need for continuous improvement in Agile. You really need to be focused on continuously improving your way of working to make Agile work, to make Agile beneficial. The other good thing is that it's actually built into Agile, so you don't need to do a lot of stuff to make continuous improvement happen in your organization. It's in there throughout Agile processes, it's in there throughout the mindset, so it's built in. You just have to use it in a proper way and get started with it. And then you're getting a lot more value out of your Agile journey. So let's see where I am. Yeah. I'm not going to tell much about me. As I said in the introduction, the main thing that I do in my life right now is sharing my knowledge, sharing my experience. I do it as a consultant. I do it as a writer, author, presenter, and I also work with InfoQs and others. So there are lots of ways in which I share my knowledge. And I'm happy to be here today to share my knowledge here at the conference. Let's start with a definition. So what's continuous improvement about? And my definition is continuous improvement is the act of continuously doing whatever helps you to become better and thus more valuable. So it's not about just changing stuff in there, it's changing stuff for a reason. You're looking for ways to be more valuable, be it as a team, be it as an organization, be it as an individual in a team. Continuous improvement is looking for ways to become better. So this is something which actually never stops. That's also why there's the word continuous in there, of course. It's something that will continue to go on, and I think this is something which is very valuable to do, and that's why I say you have to become more valuable. That's the main reason that you're doing continuous improvement. And continuous improvement is not something new. We can actually go back and see what's been there for a very long time. There's people like Deming already looked at the importance of continuous improvement. There's Kaizen, which started a long way ago. The Toyota way of working, which explored how teams working in the organization actually improved their way of working, giving teams actually the freedom to stop the line when they saw a problem and look for a way to solve it. And not only solve the problem at that point in time, but also learn from what was happening in there and to look for a way to solve this and prevent similar problems from happening again. These are things which have been there a long time already. So Agile didn't invent continuous improvement. And continuous improvement is not something new in there. There's lots of stuff in there on how you can do this, and there's lots of ideas on how people have been doing this already. But it is very important in Agile. And it actually goes back to the first line if you look in the Agile Manifesto, which says, we're uncovering better ways of developing software and helping others to do it. It says uncovering better ways. That was actually the thing that really made it for me to say, hey, this is something new. This is something which makes sense to me. A lot of processes, a lot of methods which have been published over the years, they more or less pretended like, okay, we got the solution. We know how to do software development. And they more or less said, well, we're kind of silver bullet. If you do it like we document it in our processes, if that's the way you're going to be developing your software, then everything is going to work out. You're going to be able to deliver your software on time. It's going to be the right quality, and everybody's going to be happy. So they more or less pretended that they had the silver bullet for software development. Where actually Fred Brooks said years ago that there is no silver bullet. And I still think that there is no silver bullet, but most of those methods pretended like, okay, we know how to do it, just follow our way of working, and this is going to work out. And Agile was actually very honest on that. They said it in the first line. We're uncovering better ways. We don't have the solution, and we probably never have one solution that will fit all situations, because it simply does not exist. There is no one solution, there is no one way, and if you found the perfect way to develop software somewhere along the way, by accident, you're probably going to need to change it 1 or 2 weeks in advance, because if something changes either in your organization, in the environment, in the people that you're working with, it's not going to be the perfect way anymore. So there is no single solution which is going to work out. And Agile made this very clear by just stating we're going to be on a journey. We're going to be uncovering new ways of working all along the way. And they also made it very clear, if you look at the Agile Principles, that there's no fixed way to do it. Where one of the principles actually stated that at regular intervals, the team reflects on how to become more effective and then tunes and adjusts its behavior accordingly. It's a 12 principle. I would have hoped that they would have put it more up. I wouldn't say that it should be the first principle, but it should be somewhere halfway of those 12 principles. But it's in there. Agile clearly states that teams need to reflect, need to see how things are going, need to look for improvements. It also says adjust its behavior. So we're not talking about adjusting a process. We're not talking about changing a document which describes how you're working in your organization. We're talking about real behavior change, because that's actually what will make the difference in the world. It's not about a documented process, it's about the way you're actually doing your work. And this is where you will continuously need change if you're working in an Agile way. There's no fixed way to do this. So, if you want Agile to work, change matters, improvement matters. As I said already, there's no one best way. We know that. There are different ways to do Agile. As actually, the introduction speaker also told you, it's not like you pick up an Agile process, you start doing it, you're going to be successful. You need to find your own way to do Agile in your organization. You need to find your own way to do Agile with your teams, to do to the people that you work with. You need to find a way that Agile will work for you to work together with your customers and to work together with your stakeholders. And there's lots of stuff in there to do it, but you need to find your own way in there. There's no one best way to do Agile. And there's also not something like first time right. In fact, you're probably going to fail the first time. Maybe not in a big way, but things will go wrong. And things won't go as smoothly as you expect them to go. If you start working in Agile way, this is something new. This is something that you're not used to. So you have to practice it. You have to learn how to do it. You have to see how it works out for you and fine-tune it along the way. Again, reflect and see how things are going. What's going well? Okay, keep up. Maybe you can even improve on that. What are the things that are not going that well? Okay, how can you change it? How can we do it in a different way that it would work out for us? So there's no first time right. There's actually not even a second time right. There are going to be failures along the way. And you're going to be correcting continuously to find a better way to do it. And things will change. Things will change in your team, things will change in your organization, things will change in the environment. So as I said earlier, even if you by accident found the perfect way to do it, something will change and it won't be perfect anymore. So you need to be able to accommodate on change. And that's also a very important thing in Agile. If you treat it like a fixed process and you train the people in this is the way that we should be doing Agile in our organization, this is the way that I want our people to behave, this is the way that I want our teams to behave, and you're going to fix it, it's not going to work out. We've seen that in many companies who treated Agile like just another process. Okay, this is the way that Agile should be done, and then it should work. It doesn't. You need to be prepared to change your way of working along the way, because you're going to need it. And also what's very important in Agile is the concept of self-organization. And that really goes down to the team and actually to the individual level. You're looking for ways for people to self-organize how they do their work, because they have the knowledge how to do it in a good way. They have the knowledge to see what's happening in there. They can reflect, they can adjust things in there. So you really want to go down to the self-organization level at the team and at the individual people in your organization to really get benefits out of Agile. So all of this stuff makes it important that you're going to need improvement when you're going to be working Agile. Improvement is essential to make Agile work. And you need a mindset for this. And that's a mindset which I call where you are continuously looking for ways to improve. This is not something that you're doing occasionally. This is not something that happens only at the retrospective. It happens at many more times during the process. You need a mindset to continuously look for things that you can do better. So, if you want to really deliver value with Agile, I hope I've convinced you by now, improvement is important. It's essential, and continuous improvement is at heart at Agile. So you really need this to get value out of Agile. By the way, the slide's going to be available on my website. I think they're also going to be available through the conference. There's lots of stuff underlined in here. They're actually links, so if you want to have more information on this, go to the links, contact me, and there's going to be lots of more stuff if you want to know on how to really get value out of Agile. There's actually a couple of studies which also have been done on the business value of Agile. They're linked in here. There's studies which have been done on the impact that you can have if you work Agile in your organization. So there's lots of stuff which actually makes clear that if you want to get value, you need to be prepared to change along the way. Okay, so we need change. We need continuous improvement. Well, how are we going to do it? Well, the good news, as I said in the opening, it's in there in Agile. It's built in everywhere if you look at Agile. It's change, improvement, reflecting. It's part of the process, it's part of the mindset, it's part of the idea behind Agile. And it's in small things, it's in bigger things. So it's in there, for instance, as I said in the principle, frequently inspect and adapt. So you want Agile teams to look at the way they're doing their work. You want individuals and teams to look at that. You want teams to work together with the stakeholders to reflect and to learn from that. So not only doing retrospectives on a team level, but actually doing on a bigger level, maybe on a project level or organizational level. So all of that stuff is in there. If you look at Scrum, as Scrum defines a Scrum Master, one of the roles of the Scrum Master is to focus on the process. So the Scrum Master focuses on the way of working of the team members. It's actually a coach, somebody who helps the people to do their work, to look for things which they can be improved in there, to remind the team of things that they would like to improve during the sprint. So the Scrum Master role has a very important part in there to look at continuous improvement. And that's one of the reasons that you want to have a Scrum Master in there, to look at improving your way of working, to look at improving your process. By the way, process and way of working, for me, that's the same thing. Process is the way that you do your work. It's not a document, it's the way you're actually doing your work. So if you change your way of working, you're changing your process. For me, that's the same thing. You have stand-up meetings. Most of the teams do them daily, where you look at problems which are there, where you look at impediments, and you look for a way to solve them. And again, there's two steps in there. One step is to get the impediment out of the way. The other step would be to see, okay, if this is happening more often, is there any way that we can prevent this from happening? Should we go a little bit deeper, dig into this, and find a way to solve this so that we won't be having these problems over and over again? So impediments stand up as a trigger for improvement, and you can use it to do those improvements with your team. There's the Agile Retrospectives, which I mentioned already, which are in there. If you look at Scrum teams, they usually do them every sprint, every iteration at the end, so every 1 or 2 weeks when they deliver software. If you look at Kanban teams, they usually do them every week or at a fixed time. Some Kanban teams do them when they have enough things in there to improve upon. So there's a repeated mechanism to reflect using retrospectives, and there's many different ways to do them and to learn from that. And there's coaching and mentoring. And this is basically something that certainly organizations that are new to Agile usually spend a lot of time on this. They have people in there who give training on Agile, but also help the people in the organization with coaching and mentoring. Coaching and mentoring is not a one-off. This is something that you should have in your organization continuously. This is something that should be there all of the time. So even if you've done an introduction to Agile, people have been trained, you had some initial coaching and mentoring, you still want to continue this. One of the ways to do this, by the way, is to do some kind of cross-coaching in your organization. So instead of having external coaches, you will have people internally coaching each other on Agile, coaching on the way of working, people mentoring each other. It could be people from different teams helping each other. It could be Scrum Masters helping each other. Internal communities of practice where people would learn. But you want to make sure that you got some mechanism in the organization which will help you to continuously learn and to have some coaching and mentoring capability in your organization. So let's give you an example to show how continuous improvement is really built into Agile. And this was an organization that I was coaching on Agile. And I came in one morning, and it was actually the last day of the sprint. There will be a plan to do a sprint review in the afternoon and a retrospective after that to see how things went in the organization. And I took a cup of coffee, went over to the task board and took a quick look at that. And most of the stuff was actually ready. And there was one card which wasn't ready yet. And I looked at it, and it was only 1 hour of work to be done. So, okay, my expectation was they're probably going to finish it today, and then they got everything ready for the sprint review. They did their stand-up meeting, they went through the team, and they went through all the cards, and they also discussed this card where there was 1 hour of work, and nothing happened. They talked about it for a while, and then they just went on to the next card. And I felt a bit surprised, and actually the program manager who was also attending the stand-up also was a bit surprised, and he looked at me and I looked at him. And we did nothing at that time, but we both felt the same, like, okay, there's 1 hour of work to finish this user story. It's 9 o'clock in the morning, and we got till 1 in the afternoon, so we should be able to do it, right? So after stand-up, he came to me and he said, like, okay, what's happening here? 1 hour of work and they're not doing it? I said, well, I don't know. They didn't discuss it in the stand-up, so it looks like something is blocking them, but I don't know what's happening in there. And he said, should I have interfered? Should I have mentioned it at the stand-up? And he used to be the Scrum Master, by the way. They now had a Scrum Master who came from the team. So he used to be the Scrum Master. And I said, no, I think you did the right stuff. Because I would like the team to find out for themselves what's happening in here and to learn from this. I don't want somebody outside the team telling them about this problem. I want them to learn for themselves. And there's going to be plenty of opportunities in there. And I actually explained to him, like, okay, a first point in time to discover this was the stand-up. They actually could have seen it earlier already if they looked at the task board. I looked at it in the morning. So I saw it at 8 o'clock. They could see it at 9 o'clock during the stand-up. There was a first point in time where they could discover the problem and solve it. Next point in time is probably going to be when they're preparing for their sprint review. Because they're going to see that this story is not ready. So I'm wondering how they're going to deal with this, if they're going to dive into it and see what's happening in there. Then there's going to be the sprint review. So they're going to be presenting the system, they're going to be presenting what's working, what's not working, what's ready, what's not ready. So again, they're going to be stumbling upon this point, and they might look at it and say, okay, we need to do something about this. And then there's going to be a retrospective, and even if they don't find it in there, there's going to be the planning game for the next sprint where that story is still pending. So they're going to stumble on it, so give the team time to look for a way to deal with this. Because there are plenty of points in the Agile process where they can find this opportunity to improve. There's plenty of points in time where they can do this. They got to the preparation, they actually got to the sprint review. They mentioned that it wasn't ready and they got away with it with the product owner. But then when they were doing the sprint retrospective, then one of the team members stood up and said, like, okay, well, this has been bugging me. Like, we have a user story and there's only 1 hour of work and we didn't finish it. That's a bit strange, right? And they started discussing it. And what they actually found out is that the thing that needed to be done to finish this user story was 1 hour of testing. But the tester was ill. They used to be a bigger team. They used to have 2 testers in the team. And when one tester was ill, the other one would step in and would do it. But the team had been split up because they became too big. So they had a new team, 6 people, only 1 tester in there, and that guy was ill. And then nobody else would take the job because they said, well, I don't know how to do it. And they were a bit reluctant to say it, so they didn't speak up during the stand-up. They didn't dare to say, like, I can't do it, so nothing happened. So what they actually said at that point in time is like, okay, this is something that we don't want to have. We don't want to be too much depending on one person. We don't want to be depending on one person being there or not being there. And if that person is ill, we're getting into a problem. So we need to do something to build up additional test capabilities, additional test knowledge in our team. And what they actually decided is, okay, next sprint, people are going to be pairing with their testers. So if something needs to be tested, we're not going to do it one person, but we're going to be pairing up people, the tester doing it and another person from the team doing it, to learn those testing skills, to learn how to do it. And if we do that during a couple of sprints, we'll probably have enough people in the team who also know about testing, and then we should be able to do it. And if we have enough people in there, we can still have somebody else test the software than the guy who developed it. So we're still having those two views on it. We have one person developing it, we have another person testing that software. So we still have an independent tester, but we have people who can do the testing in there. So this is something that they decided in their sprint retrospective. They put down the action on their task board, and during the next sprint, they pulled it out. When any testing work needed to be done, they would always say, okay, can we do it with 2 people? Actually, they also discussed it in the planning meeting, and they discussed this with the product owner and said, okay, we're going to need some more time in the next couple of sprints, because we're going to have 2 people working on the testing work, but we need this to be able to do the testing that we need to do in our team. So this is going to be an investment, but this is surely going to pay off. And the product owner was okay with it because he saw the benefit. So looking back, there's multiple points in Agile where you can find a problem and where you can define improvement to do it. It could be 8 o'clock in the morning looking at the task board, 9 o'clock doing the stand-up, 11 o'clock when they were preparing for the sprint review, 1 o'clock sprint review, 2 o'clock sprint retrospective, or 4 o'clock planning game. All of those opportunities would be valid. There's plenty of possibilities to do it. And if you just use one of them, you're going to be able to find those improvements and to work with that. And as a coach, what you will do is to help teams to be able to find those improvements in there and help them to become better and deal with the problems which are in there. If they didn't bring it up at the sprint retrospective, I might have mentioned it. If they didn't bring it up at the planning game, I was there as a coach, I would have told them. But I preferred for them to find it out themselves, and they actually did, and they learned from that. So, how can you improve continuously? As I said, there's plenty of ways in the process to do it there. There's still something that you need in there. You need to have people who know how to do improvement, which is basically organizational change skills in there. And you need some methods and tools to do continuous improvement. There's a lot of practices, exercises, things that you can do to use continuous improvement. So this is something that you need to have in your organization. If you look at most classical organizations, there are people in there who be involved in process management or quality management who know about this stuff. If you look at modern organizations, Scrum Masters should have some skills to do this. They should know about organizational change, and they should know about techniques to look for improvements and to do these kind of things. One of the things I mentioned already is Agile Coaching. Most of the organizations who go to Agile do this, and I think it's very important to have it in there, not only at the start, but keep an Agile Coaching capability in your organization, where people will give feedback, where people will help each other to provide ideas on how to do stuff in there. One thing which is very important to make Agile Coaching work is to make sure that you have safety in the organization, so that people, if there's a problem, the people actually speak up. If you don't have safety where people feel safe to mention the problem, where they say that something went wrong, you're not going to be able to solve it. So establishing safety, and again, there's a lot of exercises that you can use to establish safety. There's a couple of them on my website. That's very important to make change done in organizations. There's Agile Retrospectives, which I mentioned already. What's important in there is to try out different exercises. So there's not one way to do the retrospective. There's a lot of exercise in the book that I wrote. There's even more exercises online right now on my exercise toolbox if you want to try out different exercises in the retrospective. There's plenty of stuff in there. And try something in your team to look for improvements. I mentioned process improvement shortly. Again, for me, process is the way of working. And there's lots of stuff if you go back to things like the CMMI, which wrote about documenting your process, which also wrote about changing the process in your organization. And actually, there's been some discussion early on when Agile was there whether Agile and CMMI are compatible. Yes, they are compatible. Actually, if you're a really good level 5, CMMI level 5 organization, that would mean that you're actually also good in changing, because that's part of level 5, continuously adapting your way of working to different circumstances there, and actually knowing if this is going to work out or not. So CMMI level 5, for me, means high agility. So these two can actually go together. Again, these links will give you more information on this. There's the People CMM, which is an accompanying model to the CMMI, which focuses on the management and HR aspects of people working in an organization. It's a model which helps you also to set up a working environment for teams, which sets up the things that people need to do the work, which looks at how people are being rewarded in the organization. There's lots of good stuff in there, also looking at competency development, which can help you if you want to increase the agility of your organization. I'm going to skip on this one. It's going to be in the slides, but it's giving you more information on to do improvement. And one last thing I would like to mention is root cause analysis. Again, this is a classic technique, looking at a problem, using a technique like 5 times why to dig deeper into a problem and to understand the root causes. But I think it's something which can be very beneficial, because once you really understand the problem, once you really dig down to the root of a problem and know what's really causing this problem, it usually becomes a lot easier to solve it. Understanding the problem is the biggest part of the work. Often the change then becomes very easy. But if you just have a superficial understanding of the problem, you're not digging very deeply, you might come up with a solution which is not going to solve it, and the problem's going to be coming back and back again. So knowing about root cause analysis, knowing a technique like 5 times why, is something that can help you to get problems out of the way in your organization forever. So this is a technique that I think certainly Scrum Masters, but I think also Agile coaches and even team members should know to deal with problems. Already mentioned Kanban as a way also to do Agile work, as another way as doing Scrum. Most of the Kanban teams do improvements weekly, they do retrospectives frequently, and actually Kanban has a very important statement that says, okay, start where you are. So you're not looking at implementing a new process, you actually say, well, this is what we're doing right now, and how can we make a small step to improve? Where are we right now? Where would you like to go? And what can we do to get one step further, going into the right direction? So there's lots of good stuff in there in Kanban, which can help you to do continuous improvement. So, summing up, continuous improvement is essential if you want Agile to work. It's at the heart of Agile, and if you just implement Agile as a process and you're not looking at how can I continuously improve my way of working in the organization, chances are big that you're not going to get good results out of Agile. You need to focus on continuous improvement. But it's in there. It's in the values, it's in the principles, it's in the practices, it's in the roles, it's in there everywhere. So you don't need to invent it. All of the stuff is in there. And if you look at a lot of what's been written about Agile, it relates back to classical stuff on change management, lean change management, different ways of changing an organization. So all of the stuff is there. You just have to do it. But to do it, you need some people who are skilled in organizational change, who know how to do these kind of exercises, who know how to do change, who know how to deal with people who are resisting, and to find ways to smoothly change the organization. Initially, if you don't have them in your organization, it can be Agile coaches, but you need to develop this capability within your organization to be able to do continuous change within your organization with your own people, because this is something which is going to stay, it's going to go away. So, my advice to you today, and also my advice to the conference today, when you're attending the conference today, look at one thing today which you say, hey, this is something that might be beneficial for my organization. This is something that I would like to take away. Think about that. about how you could do it. Think about a way to introduce it in your organization. Keep it small, just a small change. But think about some way to do it. Think about who you should involve, how to introduce people to the idea, how to get it started. Start doing it. Because every Agile journey starts with the first step. There's a book on continuous improvement. If you're interested, connect with me. I will send you a free copy if you want to read more about this. I'm still writing on this book, but there's lots of stuff in there already. So if you want to have it, let me know. But keep on improving.
Oh. Okay, it's time for questions.
Okay, who has a question? Is there a microphone?
Test. Okay. Can you hear me? You mentioned continuous improvement in your talk a lot. I want to ask you, continuous improvement is a difficult thing because you have to improve and change a lot, and change is hard. How to keep up the morale with the constant change, constant improvement when it's actually really hard to do? Mm-hmm. How do you cope with that?
Yeah, I agree. Change is hard, and actually this is where I would like to go back to extreme programming, which has the idea like if something is hard, you have to do a lot of it, because if you do a lot of it, you will get better at it. And this is also true for change. So initially, doing changes will be hard because your organization is not used to that. The trick to do is to make it small. Don't try to do everything at once. Try to make a small step into the right direction. If people do a retrospective, I always advise them to look at only 1 or 2 actions which you're going to be doing in the next sprint. That's more than enough. Don't try to think of everything that you're going to be doing for the next 5 years, because it's not important. Take small steps in there. The other thing to make change work is to know why you're doing it. And I think a lot of people are forgetting that. They think about changing something, they think about doing something new, but they don't know why you're doing it. They don't know about the value, the benefit that will come out of this. So think about why you want to do it, what's the value that it's going to bring, because that's going to motivate people. And if people still are wondering, okay, should we do it or not, then my advice would be call it a safe to fail experiment. So say, we're going to try it in the next sprint, and we're going to see if it works out. And if it doesn't, then we'll just stop doing it. And we're going to try something else. So this is not going to be fixed in stone. This is going to be something that we're going to try out. If it works, we'll keep on doing it. If it doesn't work, we'll try something differently. That's the 3 things which usually get change going in organizations. Okay, other questions?
You was mentioning about the basically T-sized resources that every in the team should have like different skill set, like or share the skill set across the team. Like, and you mentioned the example like a developer should have some testing skills, right? Mm-hmm. Which would help. I imagine this really helps. The question is, did you face any resistance from the developers saying that we are not testers, we don't want to learn any testing?
Well, actually in this team there wasn't that much resistance because people were eager to learn something new. And that's actually usually the case. It depends again on how you're going to deal with it. If you're going to be telling to somebody, okay, you're going to be a tester and your role is going to change, you're going to get a new function, and this is how we're going to be doing your performance reviews, yeah, then people might resist to that because they might be wondering, okay, do I really need to do this? But if you tell them, okay, you get the opportunity to learn something new, try it out within your team, which is a safe environment for you, you get the chance to learn something new, most of the people don't oppose that. So again, it's how you introduce it. If you introduce it as something like, okay, it's a way for yourself, you develop yourself, people often don't object to that. Okay, other questions? One over there.
You've mentioned root cause analysis. And what if in this situation when organization is trying to have these 5 whys questions, they are stopping on the third one and picking the first convenient kind of cause of the problem and not going deeper? What could you suggest in this situation?
Yeah, I've seen that situation actually at several times. I think it goes back again to having people who are skilled in this, are skilled in the process, skilled in the technique, because they're not going to stop at the third question. They're going to ask a 4-time why, and a 6-time, 5-time why, and a 6-time why until they get to the root of it. I had one occasion where I was working with a team in India, and we were doing a workshop on root cause analysis, and they actually brought in problems as part of the workshop to try out the technique. And I was doing a 5-time why exercise with them, and at one point in time, the whole team went silent. And that's where I said, okay, I think we're hitting on something, because once you start getting silent, we're getting to the real stuff. And actually, their manager was in the room, and he felt like, okay, I might be an objection. And he said, okay, if you want me to go out, I will. And they said, no, please stay. It turned out that they didn't know how to do something because they requested training, and the manager said, well, we don't have budget, so we're not going to do it. Doing the 5-times why, they now learned why they needed that training. The manager saw it, and they said, well, we're still low on budget, so I can't promise it to you, but knowing why you need it, I'm going to make sure that you get this training. I'm going to find one way or the other to do it. So having a skilled facilitator who knows when to continue questioning and when to stop, it's going to get you to the root cause. The other thing to mention here is going back to Jerry Weinberg, which is also somebody who I love very much, who stated, it's always a people problem. And that's true. When you go into the root cause analysis, when you're still at processes, when you're still at tools, you're not at the real problem. Once you start getting at how people behave, how people are working together in your organization, when you start getting at things like skills, getting at the soft stuff, that's where you're getting on the real problem. Yes, it's always a people problem, but there's always people who can solve it. So if you want, you got the power to solve it.
Okay, maybe somebody has his...
Hello, Donatas from company Telesoftas. I would like to ask you, what would be your suggestion how to encourage team for changes and continuous improvement for a team which thinks they do everything just fine?
Okay. Yeah, that's a good one. Well, what I try to do in there, and it's some advice I got from a manager years ago already, is to say, okay, if you're doing everything just fine, and you actually think that you're great at doing stuff, okay, then try to find a way to become even better at that. I had a manager at one time who said, I'm not going to be focusing anymore on things which you're doing wrong. I'm not going to be focusing on your weak spots. I'm going to be focusing on your strong spots, because if you become even stronger at that, then you're going to be much more valuable to our organization. I don't care about things which you do wrong. I care about things which you do right and get better in that. And there's a lot of techniques in there which you can use, which are mostly related to positive psychology. There's things like solution focused in there, who are looking at the strengths in your organization and exploring those strengths to solve problems in there. So there's a couple of exercises also on my website. There's actually also one in the book, I think, on using the strengths from people and using those strengths to solve problems in there. So there are actually techniques in there that you can use with those teams. And once they get the hang of that, they will find out like, okay, we're actually becoming a super team, and we're actually using our strengths to solve problems that we're facing, which they might be ignoring initially because they're so much convinced that they're doing the best they can, and they are. But even using their strengths, they can get better.
Okay, we have time for the last question. Do we have one more? Silence.
Anybody?
Okay.
I'm here now. I'm here all day, by the way, so.
Here you go.
Okay.
Okay, the question is that continuous improvement, always. Does it mean that you suggest that there is never things done in Agile? Because always you need to improve.
Uh-huh.
Customer never gets final result.
Well, that's the...
Can be such a discussion on the point, because you always improve.
Yeah, I understand it. Actually, this is where I go in a debate with people like Catherine Kirk, because he says, I don't like continuous improvement, but it feels because you're never done, and it feels like you're always struggling to do things in there, and I can understand that feeling in there. On the other hand, if you look at the customer point of view, at some point the customer will say, well, the stuff that you delivered right now is more than enough for me, so we can finish it right now. We don't need to put more money in there, because putting more money in there is not going to give such an improvement that it's worth doing it in there. So even from the customer point of view, at some point in time it will stop, but then there will be other customers in there. Looking from a team point of view, try to make it fun. Try not to make it as something which is putting pressure on the team. It's not like, okay, we need to improve. No, try to make it like something that's a positive challenge for the team. We always know a way to do it better. And we want to do that because we want to be the best team and we know that we can get better. But yeah, not put too much pressure on yourself. Make it fun.
Okay, thank you, Ben, for your nice speech and for the good questions. And we have a small present from Agile Lithuania.
Thank you.
So, thank you.